Now Reb Nosson tells us that actually the waters that we just described in the concept of Mala Aretz Deas Hashem Kamayim Li'amachasim, that the waters connected to the idea of Emunah are really drawn from the aspect of the mikvah. And this is very deep. What happens when a person is going into a mikvah? They envelop themselves within the water and their eyes are closed. And Reb Nosson says that primarily this aspect of Amalek attacks the eyes. That's why in this generation we have so much of a struggle with our eyes and Pegam Einayim and what we're looking at and so on, is because deeply that aspect of taiva, that aspect of self-orientation, self-gratification is really rooted in a much more existential Pegam Einayim, a much more essential, fundamental blemish of the eyes, which takes place when a person looks upon the world as if there's no HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the ultimate Pegam Einayim. That's the ultimate aspect of going through this world without seeing the depth in things. If you don't see the depth in things, so then naturally that's going to lead a person to forget that they're a soul, to forget that they're a spark of godliness, and to forget that we should respect our personal dignity and really live and strive to reach higher standards, because if Hashem is not real to us, so then the mitzvahs aren't all that real to us, and then we're going to choose ourselves over Hashem and choose our will or apparent desire over Hashem's will like 100% of the time, right? And so the more fundamental Pegam Einayim, it's not about a filter on a phone, it's about trying to root ourselves, if we can, as much as we can, and all of us are on that journey in one way or another, exactly where we're supposed to be, and taking the next right step for where we're at along this journey, that ultimately what we're supposed to be really working on is our emunah. And that if a person is able to fix that Pegam Einayim in terms of the way that we look at the world, then naturally that's also going to show up in our capacity to make better choices with regard to the more specified example of this experience of where we're looking and so on and so forth. But Reb Nosson says this is the essence of the Pegam Einayim. And because our eyes are open to this world, our eyes are open to what's called chesed ha'alma, to the almost like illusion of this worldliness, where a person falls into that consciousness of sleep, the person falls into the sub-das consciousness, where their hands are below their head as opposed to above their head. And Reb Nosson tells us that this is the aspect of Shema. This, that we cover our eyes when we're saying Shema Yisrael, is this exact thing, is that if a person wants to connect to Emunah, you have to cover your eyes. Meaning you have to connect to a deeper reality than the reality that our physical eyes can see. We have to find a way inside of our hearts and souls to be able to open our inner eyes and to see deeper, to look beyond the surface, not to fall for the illusion of Amalek, for the happenstance, for this that Amalek is asher karcha baderech, to try to make us feel that everything that happens in the world just happens to happen. Even the word that we use to describe things that occur, the word happen, is that very thing. Right? This happened, and then that happened. What does happen mean? Happenstance. It just happened. Right? That's the Inyan of Amalek, Asher Karcha, to make everything cold and dark and trapped and limited. That's the Inyan of Amalek. And so if I want to be able to connect to Emunah, to declare Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, I need to be able to close my eyes. And this is what happens when a person goes into the mikvah. This is the essence of the tikkun, is to keep your eyes closed and to envelop oneself within the mayim. What's the mayim? That is, like we said, the Meimei Hadas. That's the aspect of the Mayim of the Umala Aretz Deas Hashem Kamayim Li'amachasim. When a person goes into the mikvah and nullifies themselves within that space, it isn't just ritual purity, go in and come out, it's like a little swimming pool. Like, there's something so deep going on. And a person who's conscious of it and understands the depth of it. And Memela, it has its intended impact. Like we keep on saying, Halacha means Halicha. It's an opportunity to really walk with God. It isn't laws, it's I think we called it a spiritual program for consciousness expansion. That's really what we're trying to connect to in Halacha. And this aspect of the mikvah for boys, for men, and for women eventually is this idea of being able to close our eyes and envelop ourselves within the water that's really like the water of Olam Haba. The mikvah is very much connected to the aspect of Olam Haba. It's something that completely encompasses a person, and it brings them into a new reality. And Reb Nosson writes elsewhere that when a person takes a deep breath before they go under the water, and they hold that breath, and then they come up from the water afterwards, and they take that first breath because their lungs are gasping for air, and they take that first breath. Reb Nosson says that breath is an aspect of the pasuk, Leiv tahar berali elokim, create for me a new heart. And that word bara is an aspect of the word bria, which is connected to the world of bina, which is the aspect of olam haba. Leiv tahar berali elokim, I've immersed myself in the consciousness of olam haba. Renew my heart, give me a brand new heart, a yesh me ayin, give me a brand new heart, like Reb Tzadok says in Sikhat Tzaddik. Give me renewal. And then veruach nachin chadesh b'kirbi. That first breath a person takes when they come up out of the mikvah, they take a deep breath. That's the ruach chadash. Veruach chadash veruach nachin chadesh b'kirbi. Renew within me a brand new spirit. And that happens when a person connects themselves to Olam Haba consciousness, which is the water of the mikvah. And that's the consciousness of being able to envelop ourselves within, to be able to close our eyes, mechezidai alma, to be able to open our inner eyes and to declare Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. I can completely disconnect from the noise of this worldliness. I can completely disconnect myself from all the apparent illusory limitations and challenges and noise, really noise of Amalek, Asher Karcha Baderech, Karach is ice. Asher Karcha, it's like to cool everything off, and ice is very noisy when it falls. It's not like water. It's very gentle and it flows very calmly. Ice is just very harsh and very hard, and that's this world. And to remove ourselves from the iciness of this world and to immerse ourselves into that place where you can't hear and you can't see, and you go down into the depths. And that enables a person to anchor their consciousness in the realization that really we can do that every minute of life, because there's always mikvah consciousness, meaning there's always the ability to sink deep, deep, deep beyond the apparent experiences that we're having on the surface, and to connect ourselves to Ashkacha, to connect ourselves to that mayim of Umala Aretz Deas Hashem Kamayim Li'amachasim, to nullify ourselves within that water and to become renewed therein, and that should give us a brand new ability to come back out into this world anchored in a much deeper space. And that's the aspect, says Reb Nosson of Netilas Yadayim Shachris, that the water that we're using to pour upon our hands, that our hands are tameh with the tumah of the night, which is sleeping, which is subconsciousness, which is a person who's sinking down into a lower state spiritually, or our yadayim are below our heads and not above our heads, like Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayhi Yadav Emunah, we're disconnected from hands of faith, and instead our hands are hands of Koicha Va'otzim Yadi Asli Yisachai Lazeh. So that water of Netilas Yadayim is drawn from the same aspects as Reb Nosson of the concept of the mikvah. Ani haben v'ata ha'av shali shekol kach ohev oti ha'av shali melech chai v'kayah al kol neshima she'ani